Well, good morning, Southern Oregon. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema, we're your hosts here today. We're both brokers at John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. And Pete, it's been another week of low inventory. We got a few more houses on the market. What do you have to say about what happened this week?
Well, we're still in that boat of high demand and in low inventory, which is where we've been. I think what we're seeing, with summer starting now, we're going to see maybe a change. Look, I hope people are taking serious the drought that we're in and the seriousness of the fires that we may have this summer, Alice. It really, I'm down here on the lower Klamath River, where here we're not even summer yet, and it's really hot and dry. So, take it seriously when you're out there, because it's going to affect real estate. We don't want to burn our country down, our area down again, like we've seen. So I think that's really the biggest concern going into the summer right now, especially as people come back out into the forest, into the RV parks around. So, it's out there, and please be aware of it, because we're in a big mess right now with water and the lack of it around here. It's so precious. Anyway, today, speaking of fires, it's been almost, not quite a year in September coming up in the Almeda fire. Eric Swanson is the city manager of Phoenix, and he's going to join us in a little bit to talk about kind of what's the update for that thing. He was, by the way, the city man. I met him when he was a city manager in Roseburg. He came here from Iowa. Then he was a city manager of Medford for a number of years also, before he left there a few years ago, and now has resurfaced back in Phoenix. So I've been around a long time, got a lot of experience, and I think he's probably the perfect person to lead Phoenix right now through this revival of how are you going to be the new Phoenix and literally rise from your ashes, and what kind of a community are you going to be. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say about that.
Well, and it's been nice to drive through there and see so much cleanup, and there's a few sticks going up here and there. I guess they're worth $1 million, right? Each piece of plywood.
Well, here you have a lot of construction going on in Phoenix and in Talent. And yet, if you want to do it right now, try to get yourself what it's going to cost you, because the price of lumber has gone up so much, and the utilities, systems, that all charges that go into that make things very unaffordable. So what kind of affordable housing can we reimagine Phoenix to be? Because, I don't know what they're going to do, but they've got a chance, because they lost an awful lot of affordable housing in the fire. How you bring that back in this day and age, man, what a challenge. And yet it's going to be a huge, huge impact on our community in the future.
And what a great question, because it's something you and I have been wondering since the fires is what is Phoenix and Talent going to do? Are they going to recreate some of those zoning spaces? Are they going to do something different? Are they going to go back to the same old that everybody does, the 3-bedroom, 2-bath? Although the manufactured parks, the mobile home parks, will be interesting to see what they're doing. But anyway, we're going to talk to Eric Swanson, the city manager of City of Phoenix, Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Well, welcome back, Southern Oregon, to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema here with my co-host, Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we're welcoming Eric Swanson today as our guest. He is the city manager of the City of Phoenix. Welcome, Eric.
Welcome. Well, thank you for welcoming me. I appreciate getting on. Thank you.
Well, gosh, your city's been through so much in the last year, and we're so appreciative of you coming on the show and kind of bringing us up to speed of where things stand now.
Yeah, there's been some pretty long days here during the rebuild, but I'm happy to say that things are moving ahead, and the community is quite resilient through this whole process. So far so good.
So we see some of the cleanup is moving on, and we have a few house starts here and there. How difficult is it to get those cleanups finished?
It's actually gone fairly well. The Oregon Department of Transportation has been heading up the process, working with contractors, removing the debris, and ensuring that all of the properties are cleaned up in accordance with all the federal environmental laws and those kind of things. So last report I got from John Vile with the county, who's heading up with the county, is they're about 85% through the process of clearing all the residential properties. So, if you imagine, that process really got started at the end of the year, first part of this year. They made a lot of progress in that short amount of time. So we're very appreciative, very thankful, and very blessed that they've made this kind of progress and things that have moved along this quickly.
85%, that's huge.
It is. I mean, it was a big process. You know, it's a large. You know, there's a lot of moving parts, especially with the hazardous materials and debris that's left behind, you know, in a fire, and getting that right is really important for the rebuild process. So I'm happy to say that that's gone pretty well. You know, if I can, I might just give you kind of a little bit, some facts, some information regarding what that cleanup process or rebuild process is looking like in Phoenix. You know, we lost a total of 284 mobile homes within the 3 parks in Phoenix. So all 3 parks have been working with the city, and they plan to replace all units. Some replacement home permits are starting to be issued, but supply shortages will slow the process of replacing all these homes. And I'm sure we're all aware of supply issues and cost considerations at this point in time. Has been very detrimental to the process of rebuilding, but things move forward. Another thing I want to mention is, of the 150 multi-family units we lost, 138 are somewhere in the process of being permitted for reconstruction, including 64 units that are under construction now. These are both rental units and townhouse condo units that are individually owned. In addition to the rebuilds, we have a pre-application for a new 26-unit apartment complex east of Bear Creek Drive on lands that were formerly vacant. So a lot going on again in that multifamily realm of rebuild. We've issued permits for the replacement of approximately 50% of the 116 detached single-family homes that were destroyed, and we hope to start issuing certificates of occupancy for some of these very soon. In fact, we issued 2 of those last week, certificate of occupancy, which is kind of a milestone, as you can imagine, for the individuals that lost their homes and going through the process of rebuilding and getting all the different permitting processes. And so that's a big milestone for us, and to have 2 folks back in their homes after losing their homes is pretty exciting. We also have an application for the construction of a new 4-story, 55-unit apartment complex to replace a single-level multi-tenant commercial building that was lost in the fire. That's approximately, if you know where Ray's grocery store is, and then behind the Jack in the Box, it's that area that was a little strip mall that was lost. So that's being replaced by a multifamily project. So that's a big step. We also have an application for a 12-unit cottage cluster development. These will be 900 square foot units grouped around shared parking and open space. And one thing I'll just mention as part of that process of looking at some of these areas where we're looking at construction of residential and commercial areas. Early on in the process, shortly after latter part of the year, we went ahead and made a change to our zoning code, which allowed for mixed use development of commercial and residential, just given the huge need that we see for residential. You know, we had a problem with residential units, or rental units in particular, being available and before the fire, and the fire only made it worse, obviously. And so being able to make that change, I think, opened up a lot of possibilities, more possibilities than what was there before. And again, to specifically address the need for residential, as well as understanding that, you know, commercial buildings and the future of commercial property in general is sort of something that's going to be hard to predict, you know, given the Amazon age that we live in, and the brick and mortar versus kind of the brick and mortar type development, especially in the commercial area. So Anyway, that's just a quick overview of what's going on in the residential rebuild in Phoenix. So we're really happy to see that type of activity, and we're really pleased with our community development director, Joe Slaughter, and his people that have been helping. We really had to ramp up too, but we had to really ramp up our ability for permit review in that process. We hired a few more folks, and we're getting support from the state financially to make that happen. So we're very, very thankful that that's something that the state has helped us out with financially. When I came here in April of 2020, the budget included one plans permit person in the department, and obviously that would have not been able to keep up given the kind of activity in our community development area. So,
well, it's good. It's good, Eric, that we're seeing developments take place. We're seeing some new construction going on. But I'm telling you, those parks you're talking about, coming back into, we did a show recently with him, and I think it was over a year waiting for a new, manufactured home to even be delivered. So they're simply so backed up so far that it's going to take longer, I think, than any of us anticipate ever filling the parks back up. And now you've got on top of that, you've got all the huge construction costs that are rising for people that are trying to build, and all these kind of projects are going on, and the costs are going to go higher. So even though you're doing so well, it sounds like you're on a good trajectory. Gosh, there's so many obstacles still to overcome to try to get that mix back and try to bring people back into Phoenix and talent. So, it's a slow process, isn't it? And it's not easy.
Not easy at all. But it's so important, so vitally important that we continue to try to support this, given the obstacles that are confronting us. I'm not sure who you spoke to specifically. I know that there's one development, Bear Lake Estates, that had over 203 units lost in the fire. And they're a national company. I think they're out of Utah or somewhere out of state. So I think for that particular project, it'll be important, obviously, that they have the bandwidth to deal with this kind of rebuild process. And as you said, waiting for that long, I think, is going to be really an impediment to seeing this happen. And as I've said to everyone, this is not a sprint. This is going to be a marathon. And to get us back to where we were before, I think we just have to recognize we're talking years.
And I hope, Eric, that the city will watch these guys, especially these out-of-state companies, in terms of what they're charging these people coming back. I lived in Bear Lake Estates when it burned and lost my house there. And, these out-of-state companies are starting to charge $700 and higher just for a space in these places. And so that's so unaffordable for so many people who lived there at that time. And it was a big concern. And I know the other parks are in that same boat. So as you guys do this, because the whole thing is that people lived in Phoenix because it was affordable to live there. And as this change takes place with so many new things, I just hope that you guys will watch that, the costs and the kinds of things that they're going to be charging. Even though I know it's private enterprise, I'm not talking about that. It's that what they're going to charge these people to try to get them back in there, because the people who lived in Phoenix and all of those who left, so many, that was an affordable place to live.
I agree, and definitely we'll keep an eye on that. I think it's important that we try to do what we can to support the affordable housing that can and will hopefully exist in Phoenix. I also want to mention, the fact that we were looking at urban growth boundary expansion. If you're familiar with the PH5 and PH3 areas that were previously part of the long-term planning that I guess the community had done, or the region had done, this regional planning process, RPS, regional problem solving. And that's an area, that PH3 is an area that's north of Phoenix, and kind of included in that South Medford area. And that's another area where there were several mobile home parks that were lost in the fire. That are currently in Jackson County unincorporated. So this process of moving forward with PH3 urban growth boundary expansion, it'll be super important to also look at keeping those residential units affordable, because that's what they really played a huge part in affordability for the region.
Yeah, I mean, so many people, lived in fifth wheels and in old RVs, in the one park right on Bear Creek there, that all lost all that. And those people are the ones that have no place to go. And that was what was so sad for so many of us, victims or whatever, to see that and try to get these people to come back. Because that was what we were really hoping, Alice, wasn't that Phoenix and Talent would really come back with some very cool ideas about how to do this homeless thing, because we had a clean slate. And somewhat it's going on, somewhat it's not, but it's good to hear that you're talking about it, Eric, more than anything else.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's what it starts. It's got to start with a conversation, right? We've got to talk about it. We've got to figure out what are some of the strategies that we can develop that are sustainable, that are again, that allow the folks to come back. I mean, it's really important to our school district. There was a lot of kids that lived in those areas, and I know they've done a tremendous job to keep those kids engaged. And in fact, I think there's a development in White City that is full of former students of the high school and grade schools that they're keeping in touch with, so that there's still that connection to Phoenix. And those kinds of initiatives are really important, and we'll continue to support that.
Well, and we've got a break coming up, Eric. So we're going to be right back with a word from our sponsor. We're visiting with Eric Swanson. He is the city manager of the city of Phoenix, bringing us up to speed what's going on in his town. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. We're here visiting with Eric Swanson, the city manager of the city of Phoenix. Pete Belcastro and myself, Alice Lema, we're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. And it's really been quite remarkable to hear that you've got your first two occupied certificates in the burn area in the city of Phoenix. You've got two people that not only rebuilt, but they're actually moving in. That's quite remarkable.
Yeah, getting those certificate of occupancy permits was really important. And I saw a picture of one of them, and it looks like he's definitely a Oregon Duck fan, because he incorporated the color, that green color that either you love or hate, I guess, which side of the fence you are in terms of either you're a Duck or Beaver fan. But no, that was great to see. And I think, again, a real milestone for us as a community, as a city, to see that happening, and someone moving back after, again, losing everything.
So what do you think has been the biggest challenge during these last few months for the recovery?
Well, one of the things that from my perspective is, at least, and again, this is the council and city staff, and we're a pretty small organization. We have police, we have public works, we have the folks that are in town hall, city hall. We're a little more than 20 some individuals. And so the challenge has been, basically having two jobs, right? We're trying to run the city, do all the things that occur kind of just through this, from a city perspective, budgets, all those kinds of things. And then at the same time, trying to rebuild and go through that process, and working with FEMA and working with Oregon Emergency Management, OEM, Business Oregon. We've even, reached out to So Ready, Local Economic Development Initiative. They're conducting meetings every Thursday from 9 to 12 at the Phoenix Civic Center, and specifically it's there to help the businesses and provide them with some information about how they can finance the rebuild process, ask questions, what things are opportunities are available. And they've actually hired an individual that's specifically was hired with EDA funds. His name is Terrell Roper. And I'm sure if you call the SoReady number and ask for Terrell, he's the individual that's been hired just specifically to help with rebuild. And so there are resources out there and available for businesses and individuals. And I think, you know, getting back to the having two jobs, it's been really, you know, just pleasing to see the kind of the support and help we've gotten, not only from FEMA and the state, but also, you know, Jackson County and others have really come in to try to help us out. And of course, they're also dealing with some of the loss as well. But at the same time, it's been extremely pleasing to see those folks that really reach out and help out with the process. Still challenging. I'm not saying it's not easy. It's a hard process, but at the same time, you know, again, we've had folks, Representative Morris, Senator Golden, that's supporting us on a project. We lost crew quarters at the fire department for District 5. It's right next to City Hall. And so we're looking to rebuild, potentially look at completely rebuilding the fire station, the police station, and City Hall. And if you've ever been to our police station or City Hall, you'll know that this opportunity or the time is gone past whether, you know, this is something we should have done some time ago, and it's something that's really needed. So we're hoping for some state and federal assistance to get that accomplished. It's a big project, but I think it'll really complement the community, and long term, I think it'll have some really huge benefits for the community in terms of as we look to rebuild and then expand our urban growth boundary. So lots of help out there. And we've even reached out to our federal partners, our senator, our congressman. They've been helpful too with identifying some potential financial resources to make this rebuild happen. Because we lost a lot of damage. We had a lot of infrastructure that was damaged during the fire, over $1 million. And so we've been piece by piece trying to rebuild or have plans to get financing to rebuild some of that infrastructure that was lost. You know, we had incomplete subdivisions that were burnt out. And so that causes issues with our water distribution system in terms of keeping the water, you know, the testing and all the things, the additional testing that's required because of that. All the meters that were melted. I mean, this was an extremely hot, intense fire where we even lost underground pipes to our irrigation systems that were melted or burnt. We lost a children's playground at Blue Heron, which was unfortunate and gets a lot of use. So these are all the things that we're working on to try to rebuild. Again, it's going to take us a while to get there, and I think we just need patience and just understanding that it takes time.
So as the recovery is continuing in the city of Phoenix, Eric, we do have some people that are still struggling to try to get their lots cleaned up. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, I think, you know, the start for that is that they have to have right of entry. So if they filled out the right of entry permits, and it's a really simple process. And most did. I mean, we had a really good participation rate. In fact, like I said, of the right of entries that have been filed with the city and with FEMA and the county, through the county, we've had 85% of the cleanup completed. So I think it's important that if there's some issues with cleanup and they've already signed the paperwork for right of entry on their property to have it cleaned up for free, it won't cost them anything, that we're making really good progress. And I think it's just a matter of time before they get to those areas. And so anyway, I think patience, and if there's some questions that they have about these right of entries and whether they, where they're at in terms of the process. Certainly contacting myself or contacting the county, we can take care of that and make sure they're on the list for cleanup. And again, as I mentioned before, I think we're doing pretty good in terms of getting people to participate in that. And there's also been a lot of self cleanup. A lot of people hire their own contractors, and pay for that through insurance proceeds, I believe. It just depends. But right now, the ODOT cleanup is really going well.
One of the things that's going to happen, though, is that, first of all, I think that the commercial part of Phoenix is going to change a lot. I think you're right. Adding, downtown and adding apartments for that is going to be really helpful. I think Phoenix is going to see a resurgence in the commercial world because it's so close and it's, it's not as crowded as it is in Medford whenever we go. So I think you're on the right track there. What's really going to happen, though, Eric, is at the prices. And this is what's happening in our valley right now. We had a 20% price increase from a year ago in the last quarter. Now we'll get March, April, and May next week, and we'll figure out what they did this time. But the prices that we're seeing in Phoenix of what's selling, and not much is going on the market, but it's going up by more than 20%. So, it's a desirable place right now, and people see that. But we're also seeing really high prices, price increases, which is really, I think, in any way, it's going to slow that down maybe for you. But it's there, and I don't know how we overcome that. But we are seeing large price increases go on, which is unsustainable, really, in our valley. And you're more vulnerable in Phoenix and Talent, I think, for this than any place, almost in the whole county.
Well, no, it's definitely, I think, understanding this is an unfortunate situation, and we wouldn't have liked it to happen at any point in time. But it is an opportunity, I think, to look at the future, and how we rebuild, I think, can really, will really affect the future. And I think that's where we're having some discussions. We've got a 2-day strategic planning session that we're planning in July with the city council to kind of look at kind of the shorter term strategic plan and what we can do, some kind of things, kind of initiatives we can do that obviously are going to change now because of the fire. So I think that's going to be an important time for the city council to get together and the staff and really come up with some ideas and look to the next 2 or 3 years as to what we can do, to really rebuild in a way that's going to be sustainable.
Well, Warren Buffett, has invested in a startup that, like, prefab homes. Have you guys seen any of that? Where it's kind of like, I want to say like the old Sears, the catalog stores, but you can actually buy these homes already pre-done. They're shipped out and just put together. They come in all sorts of sizes and those things, and the affordability issue is there. So those are the kinds of things that I'm hoping that we're going to see somewhat in Phoenix and Talent, even in Medford there as we go along here. Different types of thing for different type of peoples. And we also saw, Eric, where motels were being converted into, extended stay places and things. We're seeing that all over. Phoenix lost, you lost your motel there, but that's a way also to solve this of single people, smaller family sizes, the minority communities who are here who need some type of housing. So it's not just all stick-built homes and nice condos and things like that. It's really a mix of other stuff there. And the prices, the way we're going, it's going to be more important than ever that we try to allow, that type of housing in our community. So good luck with that. If you can solve this, man, you're going to be the smartest person I know, because we've been talking about this for years on the show. And it seems like we just never get any opportunities to do something like this until this fire came and all of a sudden opened up all sorts of possibilities of housing.
Yeah, I think it's not a one person deal, but I'm definitely, definitely feel like I'm at the crossroads here in terms of seeing a lot of the ideas that have been generated. And I think we're open to all of those, but I think really it boils down to the property owners themselves and the risk that they're willing to take in these times. Again, from a residential, I think it's a no-brainer. I think there's definitely a demand. Now, how do we take that demand and make that work for Phoenix is going to be really important.
Well, folks, we have a break coming up. We're chatting with Eric Swanson, the city manager of the city of Phoenix. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, John L. Scott of Southern Oregon, Guy Giles Mutual of Omaha Mortgage, and our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We'll be back in just a quick minute to finish chatting with Eric Swanson, the city manager of the city of Phoenix. So do not touch that dial. There's more to come. You don't want to miss it. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema here with my co-host Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers at John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon. And we're here in our last segment of interviewing Eric Swanson, the city manager of City of Phoenix. And it's been a very uphill battle the last few months, but the City of Phoenix is making it back. And one of the things, Eric, that we heard you talk about was the cottage cluster, that is a kind of a future thinking housing solution. Would you elaborate more on that for us?
Yeah, again, it's an application, so it's in an application stage right now, and it's a new 12-unit cottage cluster development. These will be 900 square foot units that would be grouped around shared parking and open space. So I think gets back to what Pete was mentioning earlier, is looking at and allowing for some type of a residential development that's going to be a little bit out of the box, right? I mean, it's not going to be your traditional type, whether it's single family or multifamily, cluster development. And I think there's other examples of this. I've seen in the Valley, in Ashland in particular, where they've used, this whole shared parking, open space, community garden, developing a sense of community. I think those are great ideas. I think those are the kind of things that we need to really, try to encourage, and certainly having those aspects of the open space and, neighbors, being, kind of located close to each other. And I mean, again, these are things that we see in the Valley, and I think it could definitely work in Phoenix. One of the things that I mentioned before about making that change in our commercial districts to allow for residential, we also allow for ADUs, on to single family, was another change that we had made to, again, look at the possibility of providing an additional dwelling unit on these residential properties. Again, they're not going to be large, obviously. They're going to be small. They're going to be, could be potentially for someone that, someone's relative that lost a home, or just somebody that's looking for, a small space to live in, and, potentially not have to be burdened by, the upkeep of a single family home. And so these are all things that I think, again, will allow for not only developers, but just persons that own a home that are looking for potentially some additional income, and helping with mortgage and those kind of things, something that can be relatively low cost if we weren't in such a pickle with these the costs that we're seeing with regard to the lumber prices and materials, construction material prices. And it's interesting, here we are in the middle of timber country, and in particular during my time in Roseburg, we were the timber capital of the nation. And obviously, there's some issues there in terms of supply and what we can do big picture in terms of improving that. I don't have the answers. I just know, as I look around, and I've spent, a lot of time, many years now, in Southern Oregon, that it's just sort of ironic for us to be located in the timber capital. And here we are looking at these construction materials. And I know there's lots of reasons for that, but it is something that does kind of, I question from time to time. And how can we do this better? So maybe if you don't mind, I maybe switch to some of our commercial activity. You know, we've issued a land use approval for a new commercial office building on at 471 Bear Creek Drive to replace the building that was lost in the fire. We've issued a temporary use permit for an office for Leave Your Mark Landscaping. A site development plan has been submitted for review to redevelop the site with a landscape supply operation. I know, Pete, you're probably interested to know this. We are working with Puck's Donuts to replace their building with a slightly larger building. So I don't know if that means that they're going to have slightly larger donuts there, but as my past has always been, it's always been a great place to go and enjoy a little bit of Phoenix. You know, that Puck's Donuts has got a lot of history there, and the sign and everything survived the fire. So we're looking forward to that. Superior Carpet is working with us to replace their building in that same location. Phoenix Self Storage is working with us to replace the building they lost in the fire. And then we were talking to Brian Garrison about building a new Garrison store in Phoenix to replace the store that was lost. And this would be likely be in a new location. So lots of conversations going on. Yeah.
And the Phoenix Motel?
Have not heard anything with respect to the Phoenix Hotel. I know, I believe I saw it was up for sale. I mean, it's certainly got a great location. But in terms of the permitting process, I think at this point, just been some conversations, nothing specific in terms of permits that have been applied for.
You got a lot going on, I'll tell you that. You're like the busiest guy around in city manager.
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, I got a lot of help. And one thing I learned a long time ago is it's a team. You know, it takes a team, and
Sure.
we got a great team. And I'm really appreciative of the support, not only in the community, but the city council, the mayor, Mayor Baker, Terry Baker, and all the city council have also been very helpful in leading us through this process. And that makes a difference, big difference.
So one of the questions that I think Pete and I got is on the residential lots, when they do become available and a new person wants to approach the city about building, the rules are slightly different, because is it true that some of those single family lots could now be a duplex, or that there's a little bit more flexibility in what you could build?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned before, the idea of the ADUs is something that we've introduced to the mix in terms of possibilities. And obviously with zoning, you can't make any kind of just sweeping sort of observation. But again, these are ideas. And I think, again, looking at duplex development, again, we're seeing that already. In terms of at least the multiple family units that we lost, as I mentioned before, the 150 multiple family units that we lost, 138 are somewhere in the process of being permitted reconstruction, including 64 of those units that are under construction now.
When do you think those might be finished and online?
That's a good question. It's really dependent upon it's kind of like anything else. You've got the contractor, you got the owner, and you got the city, and you got all these things that we have to comply with in terms of building, electrical, plumbing, those kind of things. And we're just going to have to work through those and be responsive as best we can. And I think it's important that we contract out with our building official those duties that that provide us all of those. The electrical, plumbing, all the different types of. So we're finding that that's a real challenge right now, and so we're working on what can we do to help with facilitating that in a more efficient way.
Well, we'll have to have you back on for another update. Thank you so much, Eric.
Yeah.
Eric Swanson.
Thank you, Alice and Pete. Good to see you again. I'm glad you're out there enjoying life as best you can. I'm really sorry to hear about your house. So
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, folks, we'll be back next week. Make it a great Southern Oregon weekend. Bye now.